In this tutorial, we're going to start modelling the draw, and I'm going to show you a really efficient way to create the dovetails. When we finished the last tutorial, your table might have been looking something like this. And because now we've created these sub-assemblies in here, we can actually decide whether we're going to be editing everything. And you can just see there's a little button that sits here in terms of activate the component. And so you can activate either the entire project or just the areas that you actually want to work on. It becomes really useful, particularly when you get very complicated projects that have lots of parts. And in this case, this project is starting to get lots of parts. Anyway, we'll go back up to the top here. The other thing too that I haven't really shown you is every time you finish working in Fusion 360 and you save before you leave or shut down Fusion, you'll see up here in this panel, you'll see these different versions of the table that have been saved. And you can see the one I'm up to now, for me, I'm up to version 7 now. In any case, that's something that you can just sort of have a bit of a look at. Where that becomes useful is if you've gone and saved something and you want to go back to an earlier version. Another thing that you've probably seen build up is this down here, which is the timeline. And this is a way of actually being able to go forwards and backwards through your project. And in this case here, for example, this takes us all the way back to the very first sketch. So that's it there. And then these are all of the actions that we've done up to this stage so far. Where that's really useful is if you want to go back and go through the timeline and maybe change something back here, you can then start to have a look and see how it affects anything, as you're moving through the project. It's something that I haven't really gone into at this stage, but we may sort of get to use it at some point. Now, you can see that I've just turned that on. I'm just going to go into my sketches here and make sure that's not highlighted. Okay, so the first thing I want to do with the draw is joined with dovetails, but it's going to have a very thin 4mm thick false front put on it. So we might as well create that first. So new sketch. And in terms of our sketch plane, I'm actually just going to select the front face of this bottom rail here. And I'll come in nice and close, and I'll use the keyboard shortcut R for rectangle. And I just want to hook onto that bottom corner there, click, and go up. And what I need, in terms of dimensions, I need 87, tab, 300, enter. Okay, now, in terms of those dimensions, that draw front fits that space perfectly. Just something to remember that in the real world, particularly allowing for timber movement, you'd want to take at least 1 to 2 millimeters off both of those dimensions. But just for the sake of this exercise, we're going to make it so that it fits in there perfectly. Okay, so we'll finish that sketch. Now it's going to be easier if we just hide our table frame and hide our tabletop. So we want to give this its third dimension. So we're going to extrude it, and we'll go back this way. So we're going to go -4 millimeters. And we want to make that into a new component. And so we'll give it a name, and we'll call it draw false front. Now we're going to start on the dovetails and the side of the draw. So new sketch, and I actually want to use as my sketch plane just that edge of the draw. I'll come in nice and close, R for rectangle again, and I want to just get that top corner down. And our dimensions now are going to be 87, tab, and the depth of the draw is going to be 338. Enter. Okay, so there's our draw side. Before we go on, I'm just going to add another parameter in there. So new parameter, and we're going to call it draw material thickness. And that's going to be 12 millimeters. L for line, we need a vertical line. D for dimension. So from there to there, and that is, I'll put that right up here, and that is going to be that parameter that we just put in. Draw material thickness. Enter. Now we'll zoom in on this because we're going to start to create our dovetails now. Okay, so a few new techniques here. L for line. And we basically just want to go from the front. We want to go back, but we're not going to go straight out. We're actually going at an angle now. And it's the angle that is important. Now, a little bit of theory here. Dovetail angles, they're usually done by a ratio. Hardwoods, the ratio is 1:8. Softwoods, the ratio is 1:6. And in the module where we talk about dovetails, I go into that a little bit more detail. But in this case, what we need is we're going to use a 1:8 ratio. And the angle of a 1:8 ratio is around 7 degrees. It's 7.1, but we'll just say 7 degrees. So what I'm going to do is just press Tab, 7, then Enter. Okay, so we've got our line in there, but we've got a little bit of a problem. You can see our line, because we didn't worry about the distance or the length of it that much, it goes all the way out here. So what we want to do is we just want to put a rule in which says that I want the end of that line to join with that line there. So we're just going to put in a coincident constraint. I'm going to click on that dot there and then on that line, and you can see it now just joins there. Okay, so we've got that one done. We're going to do that one more time. We'll come up at our angle. So we go Tab. Our angle is 7. Enter. Now, in this case here, it's kind of worked out what we're doing already. Oh, no, it actually hasn't made that coincident. All right, well, let's try that again. So we just go there and then there. Yeah, there we go. It's fixed it. It's made it coincident. Sometimes it can work it out all by itself, but in this case, it just needed a little bit of reminding. Okay, so we've got that done. Now we need just to put in a few other dimensions here. So D for dimension. I want this here to be 5 millimeters. And I want the distance between the outsides of the tails to be 15 millimeters. Okay, so we've set that up now. Now what I want, so this is the tail of the dovetail, and I want 4 of those in my design, but I can play around with that. So rather than just draw that 4 more times, we're going to do something new here. So we're going to go, over here in Create, we're going to go down to a rectangular pattern. So we'll select the objects, so that there, and then we'll hit our little Shift key and select that one there. And we want 4 of those. So we'll type that in there. And all we're going to do, we're just going to select our arrow. We've got to kind of work this out a little bit. So we get to about 60 millimeters and it looks okay. Now remember, I'm just going to show you something. Remember how we put in this 5 millimeters up here, and we want it to be the same down here. But if I've got that there like that, that looks like it's more than 5 millimeters. That's less than 5 millimeters. Let's just play around with it. Let's just do that. And we've just got to change that back to 4. Okay, so you see 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's not gapping quite right yet. But we'll just go OK. Then what I want to do now is I want to measure that distance there and see what I've got to adjust by. So I can just go letter I for my inspect tool and just measure that. So that's 7 millimeters. So basically what I want to do, I want to adjust this by 2 millimeters so I can get the same gap. So all I got to do there, I'm just going to close that off. You'll see up here this little constraint it's put in there. So that's a linear array constraint. So if I just left click on it, then right click on it and go edit, what I can do is if I change that to -62, so a little bit of mental arithmetic there, press enter. Let's now just inspect that again. So letter I. We've got our 5 millimeters. Perfect. Okay, so we've now laid out our pins and our tails. So we'll finish that sketch. All right, so let's create the draw side. So that's really just a matter of doing our extrude here. And what we want to do is we want to select everything that we want to extrude. So that, and then our Shift key, all of that, 2, 3, And so our four dovetails we want to extrude. And we want to go back this way, and we want to go minus draw material thickness again. And in terms of our operation, what we want for this one, we want a new component. Okay, so we've got that much done. All right, so then the next thing we want to do is we want to then start on our draw front. So it's actually the piece that sits behind our false front here. Now, before we do that, best practice is let's give this a name. So right click, rename, draw side. What I want to do, I just want to turn that sketch back on, and I want to turn that component off. So we've got our sketch on. So this time we need to extrude again. This one's a tiny bit more complicated. So the first extrude that we actually want to get all of this. And we want to make sure that it's a new body. And we want to go back this way. So it's going to be minus 150. So remember, what we're going to do is we're going to mirror it like we've done before. So we've got that. So we go OK, and we've got our new body. Now what we want to do is we want to take out the pieces that are in the side here. So we kind of want to cut out some parts here. So again, we're going to do another extrude, and we might as well select them all. And the amount is going to be minus draw material thickness. And the operation is cut. So I've done that. Okay. So we've basically now got the opposite of what we had for our draw side. So now we can turn our sketch off. We can actually just check to make sure this all works. So we can turn on our draw side, and you can see how they fit perfectly together.